In a moment, the registrar will announce the inspirational speaker today, Senator Jimoh Ibrahim, but I just wanted to say a few personal comments about the senator, because here's an amazing fact, and Dame Mary asked me, is this a record? The senator has 12. He and his family have 12 degrees from the University of Buckingham between them. He himself, his wife, his children, some have multiple degrees, so it's not quite as extensive as it sounds, but nonetheless, 12 degrees. It's wonderful to have you here. Jimoh Ibrahim is a Nigerian lawyer, politician, businessman, and philanthropist who has been representing as senator the Ondo South Senatorial District in the federal government of Nigeria for the last 2 or 3 years. He's a chairman of and chief CEO of the Global Fleet Group, a diversified conglomerate based in Nigeria. Hot off the press, he's just been invited to the Senate of the University of Cambridge, where he has a PhD. And it's really wonderful. I'm going to hand you over to the registrar to announce you, but it's wonderful, personally wonderful, to have you here with us today. Thank you.
Chancellor, I call upon Senator Jimoh Ibrahim, graduate of the University of Buckingham, to address Convocation.
Vice Chancellor, please allow me to stay on the existing protocol already established by your distinguished staff, and also to recognize the presence of the Deputy Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Jimoh Ibrahim, who is here eminently with other distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, among which we have distinguished Senator Ireti Kengibe, who is the chairman of the Women Committee at the 10th Senate. We also have Senator Mustafa, who's in charge of agriculture, and of course our very leader, the Tony in the Senate himself, that's the minority leader, Senator Abamuru. I sincerely appreciate your finding time to be here. Mr. Vice Chancellor and very distinguished graduates of this university, let me start by saying that we gathered today to celebrate yesterday. Certainly, we are not here to discuss today. We already know what today entails, but do not know what tomorrow holds. We find solace in Jeremiah, the book of the Bible, the Holy Bible, Jeremiah 33:3, which says, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and reveal great things and mighty things that you don't know." So if we know those great and mighty things, we will not worry. But you just have to call on to God to reveal those great and mighty things that can make you very successful, and more successful than many of us. Introduction of my speech. Now the global economy is grappling from challenges, from the American debt of 35.4 trillion, which is 121% of the debt to the GDP ratio. There's rising concern about inflation in the UK. UK national debt reached £2.77 trillion in September 2024, 95% debt ratio to GDP. China debt total about $16.6 billion, 90.1% debt ratio to the GDP. A changing world is inevitable. A high level of debt growth is coming. And I must advise graduates, starting from tomorrow, you will focus on your life and the planning of what to do in life on this global system that is already embedded into high level of GDP to debt ratio. We eagerly anticipate your contribution, like the Vice Chancellor has said, and we also believe that despite the converging complexities around the economic system, you still have a lot of role to play in ensuring that the global world is made safe, because I do know that education should be organized within the framework of shift as responsible, particularly the university. The university is the only place where you can get best solution to our development. Here are keynotes that I think you should take home. Last year I was privileged to speak with the University of Cambridge, University of Oxford graduates, And these are the few points that I also made. By next month, I'll be speaking to the University of Cambridge as the keynote address speaker to the Africa Conference of the Business Awards that the Cambridge is putting in place. One is vision. You already know about vision or having vision, but I have two questions to ask you. Is your vision well conceived? How prepared are you if option A fails? You need to have option B. My lecturer at the University of Oxford always tell me that option A is subject to attack of the enemy, so option B must be by your side. Now, is your knowledge capacity sufficient to support your vision? And I think the Vice Chancellor spoke about this, about coming back. Or is your vision rooted within the ecosystem? Or will you reshape your vision within the ecosystem? In other words, is the ecosystem going to give you a vision, or you are going to give a vision to the ecosystem? And this is very important. So if you don't have a well-conceived vision, it simply means that the ecosystem will surely give you a vision, and that can be very frustrating. So there is need for you to have a strong courage and well-prepared vision that you can give to the ecosystem and possibly reshape the ecosystem with your vision. Lesson number 2, which is you have to know yourself. And I would really advise that you should not do anything from tomorrow morning until you genuinely understand yourself. This is very important. I'm emphasizing that leadership begins with self-awareness. Who are you? And what are your predictable behavior? From tomorrow morning, the foundation of your new life will be rested on a well, vital self-assessment of your qualities. Who are you? Should be a prominent question you should ask yourself every other day. Now, how are you positioned about the 5 keys? You already know the 5 key big leadership traits. Where do you belong to? And how can you navigate from those big traits? For instance, are you a conscientious person? Who are they? They are judge people that have been diligent, punctual, law-abiding, and hardworking. It does not mean that one group of traits is better than another group of traits, but how you navigate within the traits is important for you to know who you are. Are you an agreeable person demonstrating reduced self-assertion or aligned with the majority? Or a neuralistic person frequently expressing negative emotion, such as worries, anger, sadness, and being sensitive in interpersonal situations? Now, if you are a conscientious person and you marry someone who is neuralist, you should expect that when you get back home, you see a wife that frequently expresses negative emotion, such as worries, anger, and sadness. How do you really? It is not that you should not marry her. It is that you must be able to know that this is what you have at hand, and how do you navigate in between and ensure that you make success of the marriage. Or you are an extravagant person, try to speak at length at all time, and then, or whatever you may be among the 5. But the key issue to take home here is how do I navigate within this traits, and this is very, very important. I'll give you a small example there. An employer in the regulatory industry like Bank of England may want to employ any of you. In a single interview on telephone, they ask you a question. A bank we visited yesterday violated regulation XYZ, and our regulation says we must withdraw the license of the bank, and the violation is just £500 in the foreign exchange transaction. Now, and they ask you, what do you think we should do? Will you impose a sanction to withdraw the license of the bank, or will you give a second warning? If you're a conscientious person, you will simply abide with the law. What the regulation says is that impose a penalty, and you don't have an option. You just have to impose a penalty because it's a regulatory environment. There's nothing you can do about that. But if you are extravagant, you keep talking and say, well, let's give a second chance. This is not allowed. So know yourself is very, very important. Now, second to the last lesson for today is lesson number 3. Now, at the undergraduate level, you are told S causes Y. And if you know what Y is, and you can attack Y very well, it means that you'll be very successful because S causes Y, and then you understand why. But at master's level, you have many Y's. There are many X also. S causes Y, but there are many X. So honestly speaking, what are they? And I think the Vice Chancellor talked about that you have to come back. So when you come back, you will know many of the X that are available beyond the Y. So I say here I enjoy my postgraduate studies because they help me recognize my frustrations I encounter in life when I reflect on those failures through the lens of my first degree, I recognize that X causes Y, which led to more belief that Y represents those success factors in life influenced by X as independent variable. Now, but the key point here today is that we have so many of the X, so you have to identify those X. So if someone tells you that if you work very hard, you'll be very successful, that is X representing Y, causing Y, but there are many Y, so you have to get on to know what are the other factors. And you can only know this very much if you return back here for more degrees. I myself standing before you, I have 9 university degrees alone, and I have that from Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, where I had my degrees, including PhD, and at University of Buckingham. 3 years ago, I was here, Mr. Vice Chancellor, I know on this podium sitting like guest here, and I to obtain my doctorate degree in modern war studies. So you really need knowledge capacity, and that's the second to the last point I'm talking about, knowledge capacity. What about returning back here to improve your knowledge, to get more things to do? My supervisor in the first degree at the University of Cambridge used to have this very terrible joke. He decided that we should have meeting every 6 a.m. on every Monday at hot numbers. And anytime we get there, he told me one day, he said, you know, the undergraduates are in Cambridge just to not to disturb their parents at home to come and play here because they don't really understand what we're doing in Cambridge. And I laugh a lot. So the key issue here, knowledge capacity is very important, central to your tomorrow. If you don't develop your knowledge, you might give in. And it's very, very important that you develop your knowledge. Now, lastly, things appear very uncertain. And that is why you have to come back. And you don't allow situation to bring you back. You have to come back voluntarily to do your master's and your doctorate. And it's very important. It's at that stage that it's become more clearer. Now, let me give you a very interesting thing about this. Science believe that the aim of science is to find the truth in any adventure. And that's been established long time ago. So the scientific people decided to say they would take 50,000 swans into the laboratory for observation for the period of 5 years. And they came back to the conclusion that all swans are black. When I was working with Professor Richards this morning within the university here, I saw some brown swans over there. So I begin to know what exactly come out of science theory that all swans are black. The truth of the matter is that swans are not black alone. So what happened to that experience? It means things are not really clear, even from theoretical class. And again, if I try as much as possible to look at why company failed in Europe, you know, I couldn't even see whether I could adopt the clinical methodology, you know, proposed by social science as the main reason why companies fail, because companies are not laboratory for experimental science. And I haven't said this, I urge you to come back. It's when you are back here that you expose yourself to more understanding of what is happening. Lastly, on this point, science also maintains that nothing can fly without support if the weight exceeds the balloon. But I came in with British Airways yesterday with 300 people flying and nothing supported us until we landed safely. So what happened to those scientific assertions? Things are really very unclear. The last lesson, the ecosystem. And I think I said this at the introduction of this lecture. The ecosystem, we will have to decide, you know, whether the ecosystem will give you a vision or whether you are going to give a vision to the ecosystem. And I think this is very key as you wrap up today and return back home. It's very important for you to know and ensure that the ecosystem do not give you a vision. You should give the ecosystem a vision. Even within the converging complexities that happen in society, you have to go with that nostalgia of courage this morning, that you leave this hall to say, I will give the ecosystem a vision. Not that the ecosystem will give me a vision. There are two things, two different issues there. And I think I urge you as you go out there to understand that your faith matters, your courage matters, and like the Vice Chancellor have said, your time, the time is very, very important. I cannot end this address, Mr. Vice Chancellor, without paying tribute to my children. I wish to recognize my children for their outstanding academic achievement. Sheo, my firstborn, just submitted his PhD thesis. Buki completed by exam in England here. David graduated first class honors with the University of Reading. Ayomide earned first class in the British by exam. Demola, who is seated somewhere in the hall here, is graduating today with the first class honors in law. Onye Damila graduated yesterday here with distinction in masters in banking, and I have set that high exceptional record of 3 degrees for each child, including the PhD. So pursue it before you can have the self-sufficiency. Now, I believe my demands are reasonable, especially since I myself obtained 9 university degrees from institutions like Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, LSE, and Buckingham, and IFE. I apologize if my expectation of those 3 degrees per child is too excessive. Conclusion. Mr. Vice Chancellor, I most sincerely thank the University of Cambridge, of Buckingham. Actually, I love Buckingham because there's an amazing thing that really happened to me. People who are wondering, why did you finish your PhD from Cambridge? You are the first human being on earth since 1209 to be awarded Doctor of Business from University of Cambridge after 4 years. Then you decided to come back and pick admission form from University of Buckingham to study another PhD. Why? It should be that people leave Buckingham to go to Cambridge, but this my case is I left Cambridge to Buckingham. So I must have found something very interesting about Buckingham as one of the very, very outstanding universities in the world. And I think the university will keep up the good records of excellent performance in terms of design of the program, which are very sweet and interesting. But let me say, Vice Chancellor, I join you and every member of the academic community in finding these graduates worthy in character and learning to be awarded their first degrees today and second and third degrees, as the case may be. And I must congratulate all of you. Let me leave this word. If you are graduating PhD today, it's not enough. You can also come back. Why? Because if your PhD is not published, if your research topic is not a published book by an international publisher, then you haven't done enough. You have to come back for postdoctorate. I did my PhD in Cambridge. My thesis have been published by Macmillan and Pangrove, and it was published 6 months before graduation. And my PhD in Buckingham is also going under publication by Macmillan. So why is your PhD thesis not published into a book? And my thesis is published under open access, so I don't have to pay for it. So if you are living here today with PhD, you must ensure that thesis is published. If that thesis is not published, you have to come back for postdoctorate. Lastly, Mr. Vice Chancellor, let me sincerely thank you for excellent job. My advice to you today is just a reality confronting the brutal facts of engagement in the global community. And I must thank the Senate President who allowed me to be with you this morning. Actually, I led Uzbekistan to come here for parliamentary, I'm back to Buckingham, and then on my way to IMF World Bank for the spring meeting. So I just pick a time here to be with you. And I do know that the degree in your hand is capable of delivering you. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid. You need to confront life with brutal facts, but on one condition, that you will always come back. You must return back. There is nothing you can do about that. No returning is being bullish. You just have to be back because you need adequate knowledge to confront the challenging world, the converging complexities in the world. You should be back.